The moon hung low and pale above the shadow veil, its light spilling across the training grounds like silver fire. Every wolf in the pack had gathered to watch Lyra Vale attempt her final shift, the one she'd been waiting for since she turned 18. But 4 years had passed and still, her wolf refused to come. "Focus," her father barked. "Feel the moon. Let it call to your blood." Lyra tried. She really did. She could feel something deep inside her chest, a heartbeat that wasn't her own, something wild and restless. But every time she reached for it, it recoiled like a frightened animal. The other wolves whispered behind her. "She's going to fail again. Maybe she's not even a real wolf. What kind of alpha's daughter can't shift?" Their laughter scraped against her nerves, but she ignored it. She dropped to her knees, fingers digging into the cold dirt, eyes lifted to the moon. "Please," she whispered silently. "Just this once. Let me change. Let me be enough." Pain ripped through her like fire. Her bones shuddered, her vision blurred. For a moment she thought it was happening. She could almost see the outline of fur, the shimmer of transformation. But then came the scream. Her own. The shift broke halfway, leaving her gasping, trembling, trapped between two worlds that would not accept her. When she finally opened her eyes, her father had already turned away. "Enough," he said flatly. "The goddess has made her choice." The crowd began to disperse. Someone snickered. Another muttered, "Broken Omega." Lyra pulled herself to her feet, tears stinging her eyes. "I'm not broken," she whispered, but no one listened. By the time she stumbled back toward the pack house, the air was thick with mist and shame. She went straight to the kitchen, her assigned duty, where the smell of bread and smoke wrapped around her like a memory. Her grandmother Ira was waiting there, her white hair glowing faintly in the lamplight. She didn't speak, only took Lyra's trembling hands and pressed something small and cold into her palm, a charm of moonstone carved with strange runes. "Your wolf isn't gone," Ira said softly. "It's only waiting." "For what?" Lyra whispered, her voice breaking. "For the one who will wake it." Lyra shook her head. "I don't believe in fated mates, grandmother. Or prophecies. Or destiny." "Then believe in yourself," Ira said simply. "And hide your pain, child. Wolves prey on weakness." Lyra nodded, but her heart felt like glass, transparent and easy to break. As she cleaned the dishes, she caught sight of her reflection in the window. Pale skin, shadowed eyes, hands that trembled no matter how hard she tried to steady them. She hated herself for still hoping. Outside, the pack howled to the moon. She couldn't join them, not really. Her wolf didn't answer the call. Instead, she whispered to the night, her voice barely audible. "One day, I'll show them what I really am." And somewhere deep within her chest, something stirred, faint like a spark trying to remember how to burn. The next morning dawned heavy with fog. The entire pack buzzed with nervous energy. Word had come at dawn. The Alpha King, Raven Thorn, was traveling through Shadow Vale on his way north. Lyra stood at the kitchen sink, scrubbing the same plate over and over until her knuckles ached. Outside, wolves rushed to prepare the grounds. Banners hung, torches lit, the air thick with anticipation and fear. The king wasn't known for kindness. He was known for conquering. "Lyra," snapped Kasha, the beta's daughter, her voice sharp as glass. "You missed a spot." Lyra turned. Kasha stood in the doorway, flanked by her brother and a few others. All of them perfect, tall, strong, smug. They watched her like hunters cornering prey. "I'm almost finished," Lyra said quietly. Kasha stepped forward, dragging a claw across the freshly cleaned counter. "You mean you're still failing? I don't know why my father even lets you stay here. You're an embarrassment to the pack." "Leave me alone," Lyra murmured. Kasha's brother chuckled. "Careful. The king might mistake her for one of the servants." "Oh wait, she already is." Their laughter filled the kitchen. Lyra kept her eyes on the plate, forcing her hands to stay steady. "You should be getting ready. The Alpha will want all the high ranks at the gates when the king arrives." Kasha's smile turned cruel. "Oh, don't worry. will be there. You, on the other hand, will be hiding in the cellar like the good little mistake you are." Lyra's jaw tightened, but before she could respond, another voice cut through the room. "Enough." Everyone froze. Standing in the doorway was Raven Thorn. He was taller than any man Lyra had ever seen, his presence filling the space like a storm breaking through the walls. His black coat was dusted with frost, his eyes the color of liquid silver, cold, ancient, watching everything. Kasha immediately bowed. "Why, Your Majesty, we didn't realize." "You didn't realize I was here," he finished smoothly, his gaze sliding past her to Lyra. "But you realized what you were doing." Lyra's breath caught. The Alpha King was looking at her, not through her, not past her, but at her. His gaze was heavy, almost painful, like it could strip away every lie she'd ever told herself. "What is your name?" he asked. "Lyra," she whispered. "Lyra Vale." A muscle in his jaw twitched. "Vale," he repeated quietly. "You are of Alpha blood then." "Was," Kasha interjected quickly. "She's defective, Your Majesty. Her wolf never came." Raven's silver eyes flicked to Kasha. "Defective?" Kasha's confidence faltered under that gaze. "It's what the pack calls her," she said weakly. "Then the pack is blind," he said. Silence fell so deep that Lyra could hear her own heartbeat. Raven took a slow step forward. Then another. Every instinct in her screamed to move back, but she couldn't. She felt rooted to the spot, caught in his gravity. When he stopped only inches away, she could see faint scars along his neck, like claw marks that had never fully healed. His scent, pine and frost, filled her lungs until she forgot how to breathe. "Look at me," he said. She obeyed before she even thought to resist. The moment their eyes met, something inside her shifted. The air grew dense, charged with static. Her heartbeat echoed his. Her knees trembled. He reached out, slow, deliberate, and brushed his fingers against her wrist. The touch burned like lightning, spreading through her veins. Lyra gasped and stumbled back, clutching her arm. What was that?" Raven's expression hardened, but there was something in his eyes now. Not anger. Recognition. "You should not exist," he murmured, almost to himself. Her father, Alpha Vale, appeared in the doorway at that exact moment, his face pale. "Your Majesty, forgive her. She doesn't." "Speak carefully," Raven warned softly. "Your words tread close to disrespect." The Alpha bowed low. "Of course, my king. I only meant. I heard what you meant." Raven's eyes never left Lyra. "You've kept her hidden. She brings shame to our pack," her father blurted. "She can't shift. She's different," Raven interrupted. "Not broken." No one dared breathe. After a long pause, he spoke again, voice quieter, almost thoughtful. "Tonight, every unmated wolf will be presented. That includes her." "My king," her father began. "That was not a request." Then, without another word, he turned and left, his cloak whispering against the stone floor. When he was gone, the room erupted. Kasha rounded on Lyra, fury twisting her perfect features. "What did you do?" "He looked at you like. "I don't know," Lyra said, though her voice shook. "I didn't do anything." "You'll ruin everything," Kasha spat. "If the king thinks you represent Shadow Vale." "Enough." Ira's voice sliced through the noise as she entered, calm and commanding. "The king sees more than others. The moon guides his eyes." Kasha scoffed and stormed out with her followers. Lyra sank against the counter, her body still trembling from that single touch. Her grandmother came to her side. "What happened?" she asked softly. Lyra shook her head. "He touched me. Felt like fire. Like my blood remembered something it had forgotten." Ira's eyes narrowed. Fire and frost both answer to moonlight. The king's wolf is said to have been born under the eclipse. "What does that mean?" Lyra whispered. "It means," Ira said slowly, that the moon might have just chosen him for you. Lyra stared at her, disbelief and terror warring inside her chest. No, that's impossible. Her grandmother only smiled faintly. Child, in our world, impossible is just another word for unawakened. That night, as the pack prepared for the king's presentation, Lyra stood in her tiny room beneath the stairs, staring at her reflection. She wore a faded blue dress, her mother's, and for a moment she could almost see strength in her own eyes. Her father's voice echoed through the floorboards above. Do not embarrass us, Lyra. You'll stand at the back. You'll stay silent. Yes, father, she whispered to herself, though she doubted he could hear. Outside, the moon climbed higher, silver and full. The same moon that had cursed her for years, now shining brighter than ever. Lyra touched the charm around her neck, the one her grandmother had given her, and felt it pulse once, faintly, like a heartbeat answering her own. She didn't know what awaited her when the king called her name, but for the first time in her life, she wasn't afraid of being seen. She was afraid of what would happen when she was. By dawn, the pack house pulsed with nervous energy. Servants rushed through the halls polishing silver and sweeping floors as if their lives depended on it. Maybe they did. The Alpha King's visit had everyone on edge. Lyra stood at the sink again, sleeves rolled up, scrubbing dishes until her hands were raw. She could still feel where the king's fingers had brushed her wrist. The burn hadn't faded overnight. If anything, it pulsed stronger now, like the memory of lightning trapped under her skin. She told herself it was nothing. A trick of nerves, maybe. The man was terrifying. Anyone would shake after standing that close to him. But part of her knew it wasn't fear. It was recognition. The kind you felt not with your mind but your bones. Behind her, the door slammed. She flinched and turned. Lysander filled the doorway. Tall, broad-shouldered, the pack's new enforcer. His smile didn't reach his eyes. Well, if it isn't the pack's broken jewel, he drawled. Hard at work pretending she belongs. Lyra went still. I don't want trouble. That's the problem, he said, strolling closer. You never want trouble. It just finds you. Two others followed him in. Kasia and her twin brother Thorn, both wearing identical smirks. Kasia leaned against the counter, examining her nails. You caused quite a scene yesterday. The king actually looked at you. Do you have any idea how many wolves would kill for that? I didn't do anything, Lyra said, setting down the plate she was holding. Kasia's eyes gleamed. Exactly. And he still noticed you. That's the real insult. Kasia, Thorn murmured. Maybe we should leave her be. The king doesn't care about her, Kasia snapped. He was curious, that's all. Once he sees what she really is. She gestured at Lyra's trembling hands. He'll move on. Lysander chuckled and picked up one of the cleaned plates. Let's test her focus, shall we? He turned the dish slowly in his hands, inspecting it. You missed a spot. Please don't. Lyra began, but he let it fall. The crash echoed through the kitchen, shards scattering across the stone floor. Oops, he said with mock concern. Clumsy Omega. Kasia laughed softly. You'll have to pay for that, you know. The cook doesn't take kindly to broken dishes. Lyra knelt, gathering the pieces with shaking hands. A jagged edge sliced her palm. Blood welled up, bright red against the pale floor. Even her blood's wrong, Kasia said. Too bright. Like she's pretending to be one of us. Lysander crouched beside Lyra, his voice dropping low. Tell me, little wolf, what did the king say to you? Did he promise to fix you? Lyra met his gaze, her voice barely a whisper. He didn't have to. Something flickered across his face. Unease maybe, but it vanished quickly. He stood sneering. Pathetic. When they left, their laughter echoing down the hall, Lyra pressed a cloth to her hand and exhaled shakily. The smell of her own blood made her stomach twist. For a moment, she wished she could vanish into the shadows, dissolve like mist and never be seen again. You let them see too much, came her grandmother's voice. Ira stood in the doorway, eyes sharp despite her years. She crossed the kitchen and examined Lyra's hand. You should have stood taller. I tried, Lyra said. It doesn't matter. They'll always see me as less. Ira tore a strip from her shawl and bound the wound carefully. Then stop letting them define what you are. They see a curse because they fear what they don't understand. Fear me? Lyra almost laughed. They don't fear me, grandmother. They pity me. Not for long, Ira murmured. The king's arrival changes everything. Lyra frowned. You think he noticed me for a reason? Her grandmother's eyes glimmered faintly silver. He didn't just notice you, child. His wolf recognized you. Lyra's heart stumbled. That's impossible. Ira smiled faintly. The impossible has a way of becoming inevitable. Tonight will prove it. Before Lyra could ask what she meant, her grandmother was gone, leaving behind only the faint scent of herbs and moonlight. That evening the pack house transformed. Banners of silver and black draped the walls. Candles flickered like stars. Every unmated wolf had been ordered to attend the presentation. Lyra dressed slowly in her mother's old blue gown. The fabric shimmered faintly, as if it remembered better days. She brushed her hair until it shone like dark silk, then took a steadying breath. You don't belong there, her father said when she entered the main hall. His tone was clipped, but his eyes betrayed anxiety. Stay at the back. Speak to no one. The king will glance over you, and that will be the end of it. Lyra nodded. Yes, father. But deep down she wasn't so sure. The great hall glowed with lantern light and nervous expectation. Rows of wolves stood in careful ranks, arranged by status. Alphas and betas at the front, deltas and gammas behind them. At the very back alone stood Lyra. She could feel the weight of every gaze pressing down on her, as though her mere presence were an offense. A horn sounded. The doors opened. Power entered with the king. The temperature dropped instantly, breath frosting in the air. Raven Thorn stepped through the doorway, surrounded by warriors cloaked in black and silver. But he didn't need guards. His presence was weapon enough. Power rolled off him in waves, thick and undeniable. Every wolf in the room dropped to one knee. Lyra tried to follow, but her knees locked. Something in her refused to bow. Raven's eyes swept across the assembled ranks, impassive and cold, until they landed on her. The air shifted. Lyra's breath caught. Her heart hammered painfully. The noise of the hall faded. All she could hear was the rush of her pulse and the whisper of her wolf inside her mind, a voice she hadn't heard in years. The word jolted through her. Her wolf was awake. Awake and claiming the Alpha King. Raven's expression didn't change, but his steps slowed as he approached the front of the hall. Alpha Vale, he said, his voice a smooth, deep rumble. You have gathered your pack well. Her father bowed. We are honored by your presence, my king. May I present our unmated wolves? Raven's gaze never left Lyra. Who is that? Her father hesitated. No one of importance, my king. An Omega. Her name, Raven interrupted. Lyra Vale, her father said reluctantly. My daughter. She's. I know what she is, Raven said quietly. Then louder. Come forward. The hall fell silent. Lyra's heart pounded so hard she thought she might faint. Every instinct screamed to run, but her feet moved anyway, carrying her through the parted ranks of wolves. When she reached him, she could barely breathe. He smelled of pine and cold metal, of rain-soaked earth and power. Raven tilted his head slightly. You didn't kneel. I couldn't, she admitted, voice trembling. My body wouldn't obey. Something flickered in his eyes. Not anger. Amusement. Intrigue. Interesting. He stepped closer until his shadow swallowed hers. Show me your wolf. Lyra froze. I can't. Her father stepped forward, panic in his voice. My king, please, she's defective. Her wolf. Silence. Raven's command was soft but carried the weight of thunder. Alpha Vale staggered back as if struck. Raven looked at Lyra again. Can't or won't. I've tried, she whispered. For years. Then try for me. Something inside her cracked. She didn't know if it was pride, fear, or something deeper. She closed her eyes and reached inward, toward the place that always burned and failed her. Only this time something answered. Heat surged through her body. The hall tilted. Her bones shivered, light spilled from her skin like liquid silver. She gasped as power filled every inch of her. Wolves around her flinched and stepped back. Raven didn't move. When Lyra opened her eyes, they glowed pale as the moon. Her wolf pressed against her skin, half-formed, desperate to break free. The floor beneath her feet cracked from the force of it. Then, just as suddenly, it stopped. The light dimmed. Her knees gave out. Raven caught her before she hit the ground. His hand curled around the back of her neck, grounding her. His voice a low growl near her ear. You are not broken. Lyra trembled, breath coming in ragged gasps. What's happening to me? Truth, he said simply. The truth waking up. Gasps rippled through the crowd as Raven straightened, still holding her steady. She is Moonfire-born, he announced. And under my protection. The room erupted in whispers. Her father looked stricken. Kasha looked like she might faint. Raven's silver eyes flashed. Enough. The presentation is over. I require a private audience with her. Her father stammered. My king, surely. Raven turned his gaze on him, and the alpha fell silent instantly. Now, the king said, his tone brooking no argument. He led Lyra from the hall, his hand steady on her arm. The moment the doors closed behind them, the noise inside exploded. Voices, outrage, fear. Lyra could barely think. Her body still hummed with strange energy, her heart thundering in her chest. Why are you doing this? She asked, her voice barely audible. Raven didn't answer right away. They walked through the quiet corridors until they reached a tall set of doors carved with moonstone. He pushed them open and guided her inside. This room, he said, was built for the first Moonfire wolf. It answers to bloodline. Lyra blinked. What are you saying? He turned to face her fully, the flickering lamplight casting sharp shadows across his face. I'm saying you are not cursed. You are chosen. She shook her head. That's not possible. I've seen what I am. No, he said softly, stepping closer. You've seen what they made you believe. His hand rose, hovering just shy of her cheek. Do you feel it? The bond between us. She hesitated, but yes, she could feel it. A thread of energy connecting them, humming with every heartbeat. I don't understand, she whispered. You will, he said. Your wolf has been bound, caged by magic older than this kingdom. But that cage cracked the moment I touched you. Lyra stared up at him, heart pounding. Why me? His expression softened, almost sorrowful. Because the moon doesn't make mistakes. For a long moment, neither of them moved. The silence was thick, alive. Then Raven stepped back, the emotion in his eyes shuddering behind cold control again. Rest, he said. Tonight, you begin to learn what you truly are. When he left, Lyra sank onto the edge of a chair, staring at her trembling hands. Silver light still shimmered faintly beneath her skin. Her grandmother's words echoed in her mind. He didn't just notice you. His wolf recognized you. Lyra closed her eyes, heart racing. She could still feel the king's touch like fire and ice. And somewhere deep within her, her wolf whispered again, clearer this time, stronger. When the great hall doors closed behind them, silence pressed heavy as fog. Lyra could still hear her heartbeat in her ears. It matched the rhythm of the king's steps beside her. They stopped before a high-arched door carved with moon phases. Silver inlay caught the torchlight, glittering like frost. Raven pushed the door open and motioned her inside. The chamber beyond stole her breath. Walls of pale stone shimmered faintly, and a great window framed the rising moon. Silver drapes hung like captured starlight. Lyra hesitated on the threshold. "Why am I here?" Raven studied her, unreadable. "Because your pack buried what you are. I intend to uncover it." He crossed the room, removed his gloves, and poured water from a decanter. "Drink." She obeyed, though her hands shook. The glass trembled against her lip. "You said my wolf was bound. How?" He set his gloves down carefully. "Old blood magic. I've felt it before, once, on a moonfire child who didn't survive." His silver eyes met hers. "Yours burned stronger. Whoever bound you meant to hide something extraordinary." "I'm not extraordinary," she said softly. "I'm wrong. Wrong." He moved closer. "You forced half a hall of wolves to kneel just by existing. That isn't wrong." Heat climbed her throat. "That was an accident." "There are no accidents when the moon chooses." For a heartbeat, silence stretched between them. Then Raven said quietly, "Show me where it hurts." Lyra blinked. "What?" "The binding. You feel it, don't you? When you try to shift." She hesitated, then placed her hand against her ribs. "Here. It burns when I reach for my wolf." He stepped closer until his breath warmed her temple. "May I?" She nodded. His hand hovered just above the spot she indicated. A faint glow flared between them, blue-white, pulsing like a heartbeat. Lyra gasped. "There," he murmured. "Do you feel it?" Cage. Threads of moonlight twisted into chains. "It's pain," she whispered. "Pain is the lock. Power is the key." He closed his eyes and the glow brightened. Lyra felt the threads loosen, heat rushing through her body. For an instant she saw flashes, her mother's face, her grandmother chanting beneath a blood-red moon, a promise whispered over a cradle. "Sleep until the world is safe for you." She staggered back, breaking the contact. "Stop. I saw." "What did you see?" "My mother. She was the one who bound me." Raven frowned. "Then she saved you. Someone must have wanted you dead. Who would kill a child?" "The same wolves who fear the prophecy of the moonfire." He turned toward the window, watching the night beyond. The last time moonfire blood appeared, the councils tried to erase it. They failed once. They won't fail again. Lyra wrapped her arms around herself. "Why are you helping me?" He looked back at her, eyes softer than before. "Because when I touched you, my wolf went still for the first time in years. And because your fate is tied to mine, whether either of us wants it." She shook her head. "I don't even know what that means." "You will." He stepped aside, opening the door. "Rest. Tomorrow, we begin to unbind what's left of your chains." When he left, Lyra sank onto the bed. The sheets smelled faintly of pine and smoke. His scent. The thought made her heart ache in ways she didn't understand. She lay awake long after the torches dimmed, the moon painting silver across her skin. Every time she closed her eyes, she saw those glowing threads coiling in her chest, and heard her mother's voice whispering, "Forgive me, my light. One day, you'll burn brighter than the moon itself." Lyra woke before dawn to the sound of knocking. When she opened the door, Ira stood there, hooded against the morning chill. "Grandmother, you're here." "I arrived with the king's scouts," Ira said, stepping inside. "He told me what happened." "Sit, child." Lyra obeyed. Ira placed a small silver bowl on the table and poured water into it. Moonlight from the window touched the surface, turning it milky. "Look." Lyra leaned over. Her reflection shimmered, first her own face, then the faint outline of a great wolf made of light standing behind her. "That's her," Ira said softly. "Your wolf. The moonfire spirit." "She's waiting," Lyra whispered. "She looks beautiful." "She is. But beauty like that terrifies those who crave control. Your mother hid it to save you." "Raven said the councils would kill me." "They would. The prophecy says a moonfire wolf will bring the end of the old hierarchies. The alphas call it chaos. I call it renewal." Lyra stared at the glowing image. If I unleash her, will she destroy them? Ira met her gaze. She'll destroy whatever you choose. Remember that. A knock sounded again, firmer this time. Raven entered, his expression all business. We ride to the river valley today. You'll learn to call your wolf safely. Ira arched an eyebrow. Safely. There's nothing safe about awakening divine blood. I prefer control to catastrophe, he replied dryly. Ira smirked. Then you'll need both of us. The valley spread wide beneath the mountains, mist curling above the river like breath. Soldiers formed a perimeter while Ira set down vials of herbs and chalk symbols on the ground. Raven stood beside Lyra, his arms folded. Focus on the sound of the river, he said. It flows from the same source as your power, steady, relentless. Lyra closed her eyes. The water's rush filled her ears. She reached inward toward the sleeping wolf. First there was nothing. Then a heartbeat, deep and ancient, echoed through her. Why do you call me? Lyra gasped. She's speaking to me. Answer her, Ira urged. Because I want to know you, Lyra thought. I want to stop being afraid. A low, rumbling chuckle filled her mind. Then release me. The threads inside her chest pulsed. She pushed against them, and pain exploded through her body. She fell to her knees with a cry. Raven caught her shoulders. Easy. Breathe. I can't, she's too strong. Ira sprinkled powder across the chalk circle, chanting words older than the mountains. The pain eased enough for Lyra to draw breath. Raven's voice softened. Look at me. Anchor here. She did. His eyes, silver shot with faint gold, held her steady. Good, he murmured. Now again. Slowly. Lyra reached inward one more time. This time she didn't fight the pain, she moved through it. The threads snapped like breaking glass. Light burst from her skin, flooding the valley in silver. For a heartbeat, she saw through the eyes of her wolf, towering, luminous, magnificent. Then the vision faded. She was herself again, trembling but unbroken. Ira exhaled in relief. The first cage is gone. Raven still held her arms. You did it. Lyra managed a shaky smile. Barely. You're stronger than you think. She noticed his hands lingering on her, the warmth spreading where his skin met hers. You should let go, she said, though she didn't really want him to. He released her slowly. We'll continue tomorrow. For now, rest. Ira began packing her tools. The bindings will weaken with each moonrise. But beware, when power wakes, others feel it. Raven's expression darkened. The council will feel it first. What will they do? Lyra asked. Demand proof that you exist, he said grimly. And decide whether to worship you or kill you. Lyra shivered. Then I'll have to be ready for both. That night, the camp slept uneasy. Lyra sat by the river, watching the moon's reflection tremble on the surface. She could still feel the pulse of her wolf inside her chest, alive, restless, whispering in a voice like wind. He carries darkness in him, your king, the voice murmured. Be careful. Lyra whispered back, he saved me. So did the flame before it burned the forest. A rustle behind her made her turn. Raven approached quietly, cloak trailing through the grass. Couldn't sleep. Not with a voice in my head, she admitted. He sat beside her, the river's glow painting his profile in silver. Your wolf. She warns me about you. He smiled faintly. Wise creature. They watched the water for a while. Then she asked, why do you carry so much anger? He was silent for a long time. Finally he said, because I've spent half my life fighting a world that kills anything different. I thought I was ending that war. Then I found you, and realized it's only beginning. Lyra studied his face, the sharp lines, the weary strength. You're afraid. Of losing control, he admitted. Of what happens when two forces like ours collide. Maybe control isn't the answer, she said softly. Maybe trust is. Raven looked at her then, truly looked, and something unguarded flickered in his eyes. If I trust you, you could destroy me. Then maybe I'll save you instead. For a moment neither of them moved. The river sang quietly between them, the moonlight binding their shadows together on the water. Finally Raven rose. Get some rest, Lyra. Tomorrow we see how deep your power truly runs. When he walked away, the night felt larger, alive with possibilities and dangers she couldn't yet name. Lyra touched the moonstone charm at her throat. It glowed faintly, echoing her heartbeat. The fear that had defined her for years was still there, but now it carried something else beside it. Oh. And beneath the hope, a whisper from her wolf, soft as a promise. This is only the beginning. The dawn after the river ritual broke cold and clear. Mist clung to the valley floor, silver under the rising sun. Lyra woke to the murmurs of soldiers packing camp and the rhythmic clang of armor. Her body ached from the unbinding, but the ache felt alive like the stretching of wings. When she stepped outside her tent, Raven stood near the edge of the ridge, speaking quietly with his captain. Even at rest he looked like a blade, still, sharp, dangerous. Ira appeared at Lyra's side. He hasn't slept, she murmured. He feels the council stirring already. Lyra frowned. They'll come here. They'll summon him to justify what he's done. Claiming a moonfire heir without their sanction is an act of war. Before Lyra could answer, Raven turned. You're awake. Good. He gestured toward the horses. We ride to the fortress before nightfall. You'll be safer behind stone until we know what the council intends. Ira raised an eyebrow. Safety and cages often share walls, King. Raven's mouth curved faintly. Then I trust you'll help me tell the difference. The ride north took hours. Forests unfolded like a sea of shadowed green, and mountains rose ahead, their peaks wrapped in cloud. When the fortress finally appeared, a vast citadel carved into black rock, it seemed grown from the mountain itself. Inside, torches burned with white flame. The air smelled of stone, steel, and magic. This was once the seat of the first Moonfire Queen, Raven said as they crossed the great hall. My line swore to protect hers. That oath was broken when she vanished. Lyra touched one of the stone pillars. Symbols like the ones on her grandmother's amulet gleamed faintly beneath her fingers. So I'm her descendant. He nodded. The last recorded one. That doesn't make me a queen. No, he said quietly. But it makes you a threat to every alpha who built power on her disappearance. They stopped before a wide door etched with moon sigils. Inside waited a long table covered in maps and scrolls. Raven dismissed the guards with a look, leaving only Ira and Lyra. Read this, he said, unrolling a parchment. It was old, the ink faded. A line near the top caught Lyra's eye. When the bound light rises and the Shadow King kneels, the pact shall be remade in silver fire. Her throat tightened. It's about us. So it seems. Raven leaned against the table, arms folded. The council will see it that way at least. Ira traced the runes with a finger. The wording is older than the councils themselves. Shadow King may not mean you, Raven. He gave a humorless smile. The title fits regardless. They'll use it to justify what they fear. Lyra looked between them. You both talk like this prophecy is real. What if it's just a story? Raven met her eyes. Stories survive because they're true somewhere. You've already proven part of it. Or aside. Prophecies twist with the choices we make. What matters is whether you control it, or it controls you. Lyra rubbed the moonstone at her throat. If they come for me, what happens? Raven's gaze darkened. They won't reach you. She caught the edge in his voice, the quiet promise of violence. You can't fight every alpha in the realm. Watch me. Ira's voice cut through the tension. Enough of war talk. She needs training, not bloodshed. The next unbinding must be done carefully. Raven inclined his head. Tomorrow then. I'll summon the old chamber. When he left, Lyra exhaled shakily. He's carrying more than he admits. Ira smiled faintly. Kings always do. That night the fortress hummed with distant thunder. Lyra wandered to the balcony outside her chamber. The valley spread below, silver rivers winding like veins of light. She thought of the prophecy's words, the bound light, the kneeling king, and wondered if destiny was just another kind of chain. A voice drifted from the shadows behind her. "Can't sleep." Raven stepped into the moonlight, cloak brushing the floor. "I was thinking," she said. "Dangerous habit." "So I'm told." She hesitated. "Do you ever wish you weren't the one who had to carry it all? The throne, the wars, the duty." He looked out at the mountains. "Every day. But wanting doesn't change what is." Lyra studied him. Maybe it could. For a long moment they stood side by side, the silence between them charged with something unspoken. Then he said quietly, "Get some rest, Lyra. Tomorrow decides what kind of world we wake to." Morning arrived cloaked in storm. Rain lashed the windows, wind howled through the battlements. In the fortress's heart, a circular chamber waited, walls covered in moonstone, runes burning faintly blue. Ira was already there, arranging crystals and bowls of silver dust. Raven stood near the door, his expression carved from focus. "This place feels alive," Lyra murmured. "It is," Ira replied. "Every Moonfire Queen trained here. The stones remember." Raven motioned her to the circle. "Ready. As I'll ever be." "Good. We'll finish what your mother began." Lyra stepped into the center. The runes flared brighter, light crawling up her skin. The air vibrated. Ira began to chant, her voice echoing off the walls. Raven placed his hand over Lyra's heart, where the final binding lay. "Breathe," he said. She drew a deep breath. Pain bloomed instantly. Fire under her ribs spreading fast. Images flooded her mind. A woman standing before a blazing altar, moonlight pouring through shattered glass. Her mother again. "Speak her name," Ira called. "Celine Vale," Lyra gasped. The room trembled. The chains around her heart cracked, then shattered. Light erupted from her body, throwing Raven back. When the glare faded, Lyra hovered inches above the floor, hair streaming like silver flame. Her eyes glowed white. She could see everything, the pulse of magic in the walls, the shape of energy around Raven's wolf, even the faint threads connecting all living things. Raven rose slowly, awe flickering across his face. "Goddess, you're awake," Lyra finished. Her voice carried an echo not entirely her own. Ira shielded her eyes. "Pull it back, child. Too much at once will tear you apart." Lyra forced herself to breathe. The light dimmed enough that she could lower to the floor. Her knees hit stone. Raven was there instantly, steadying her. "You did it," he said. "The bindings are gone." She nodded weakly. "I can feel everything. It's loud. You'll learn to silence it." Ira sprinkled salt around the circle, sealing the ritual. "The prophecy's seed has sprouted. The council will feel this before nightfall." Raven's jaw tightened. "Let them come." Lyra touched his arm. "No. Running from them will only make them fear me more. I need to face them." "Face them," he repeated. "They'll try to cage you or bleed you for your power. Then they'll learn I'm not the child they buried." For the first time he smiled, small, dangerous pride flickering in his eyes. Spoken like a queen. Later that day, messengers arrived, drenched from the storm. Their banners bore the sigil of the High Council. The lead envoy bowed stiffly. "By decree of the 12, the Alpha King is summoned to present the entity known as the Moonfire Wolf for judgment." Raven's expression didn't change. "Tell your masters we'll attend at dawn." The envoy blinked. "You agree." "I do not bow to threats," Raven said. "But I'll meet them on my terms." When the messengers left, Ira looked grim. "They'll come armed with silver and law." Raven turned to Lyra. "You'll not leave my side in that hall." Lyra met his gaze. "I wasn't planning to." That evening the fortress prepared for departure. Outside, the storm broke, leaving the world washed and clear. Lyra walked the battlements, cloaks snapping in the wind. Every sense felt sharpened. She could hear the heartbeat of the soldiers below, the whisper of the forest miles away. Raven joined her, silent for a while before speaking. When we stand before them, they'll call you an abomination. Don't let their fear shape you. I won't. If they demand submission, I'll show them the truth instead. He studied her profile. You're not the same girl I met in that kitchen. No, she said quietly. She died when the chains broke. Raven's voice softened. Then may the world remember the woman who took her place. A gust of wind tugged at her cloak. She looked up at the moon breaking through the clouds. Do you think destiny can be rewritten? He followed her gaze. If it couldn't, you wouldn't be standing here. They lingered until the first stars appeared, two figures outlined against the vast sky, light and shadow, bound by something larger than either of them understood. Somewhere in the distance, thunder rolled again, faint but certain, the sound of the world shifting its breath in anticipation of what would come next. The High Council's citadel loomed like a scar against the mountains. 12 towers, one for each ruling pack, surrounded a vast courtyard paved with black stone. The air smelled of rain and silver, sharp, metallic, and cold. Lyra's heart thudded as she rode beside Raven through the heavy gates. Soldiers watched from the walls, their armor gleaming like ice. The sky hung low and gray, clouds hiding the moon. Inside the hall, torches flickered blue. The council chamber was circular, its ceiling lost in shadow. A ring of thrones waited, each occupied by an alpha or elder. At the center lay an empty dais of carved obsidian, the place reserved for the accused. Lyra felt the weight of 12 gazes as she stepped forward. Murmurs rippled through the hall like wind through dead leaves. Raven's voice broke the silence. You summoned me. The eldest counselor, a woman with hair white as frost, inclined her head. We summoned the creature you've brought among us. Raven's tone hardened. Speak of her again in such a way, and I'll remind you what it means to provoke the Night King. The hall stirred uneasily. Lyra touched his arm. It's all right, she whispered, though her pulse raced. She stepped onto the dais herself, the echo of her footsteps filling the silence. I am Lyra Vale, she said clearly. And I am not a creature. The counselor's eyes narrowed. Then prove it. Show us the wolf you claim to be. Raven started to protest, but Lyra raised a hand. Let them see. She closed her eyes, drawing a slow breath. The moonfire inside her stirred, warm and bright. The chains were gone now. She could feel her wolf clearly, steady, waiting. Light rippled across her skin, spreading like liquid moonlight. Her hair lifted in a silent breeze. When she opened her eyes, they glowed pure silver. The council gasped as her aura spilled outward, a halo of silver and white. For a moment no one spoke. Then a man near the far throne rose abruptly. Abomination, he hissed. The prophecy fulfilled. The end of the order. Another counselor barked. Seize her before she infects the balance. Raven's power erupted before any soldier could move. Darkness gathered around him like a storm. His voice a snarl of command. Touch her, and you'll beg the moon for mercy you won't receive. The hall trembled. Shadows stretched from his feet like smoke. Lyra's voice cut through the chaos. Enough! Light and shadow collided, the moonfire in her meeting Raven's darkness. The impact cracked the air with a sound like thunder. Dust drifted from the ceiling, and the council fell silent. Lyra turned slowly, her voice steady. You call me a curse, but you built this order on fear. You silenced what you couldn't control. I was never the end of your world. I am the proof that it can change. For a heartbeat, even the wind outside stilled. The white-haired counselor leaned forward, eyes calculating. Change always demands blood. Raven's answer was cold. Then it will not be hers. After hours of argument, the council adjourned. Raven led Lyra from the hall before the guards could gather courage again. They walked the empty corridors in silence until the echo of footsteps faded. Lyra exhaled shakily. They hate me. They fear you, Raven said. There's a difference. I don't know which is worse. He stopped, turning to face her. They'll try to twist this prophecy. They'll say your power threatens the balance. But the balance was already broken long before you. Lyra searched his eyes. You sound like someone who's seen this before. I have. He looked away, the lines of his face hardening. When I was a boy, the council burned a moonfire seer alive. She was 12. Lyra's stomach twisted. They said it was justice. They called it protection. It always is. She stepped closer, her voice soft. You could have let them destroy me too. Why didn't you? Raven's eyes flicked back to hers. Silver, storm-lit, intense. Because when I saw you, I remembered what it felt like to hope. Lyra's breath caught. And now I remember what it costs. Their gazes held for a long moment. Too long. Then he turned away sharply. We leave at dawn. They won't let you walk free twice. That night, the fortress offered them temporary quarters. Rain pattered against the high windows, filling the silence between them. Lyra stood by the fire, staring into the flames. The energy inside her hummed restless and bright, refusing to quiet. Every flicker of light mirrored the pulse of her wolf. Raven sat at the table, poring over old maps. His expression a mask of focus. But she could feel the tension rolling off him, like a storm barely held back. Do you ever stop fighting? She asked softly. He didn't look up. No. If I do, everything I protect burns. Lyra walked closer, stopping across from him. And what protects you? That made him look at her. His eyes, for once, weren't cold. No one. The words hung between them, heavy and honest. Lyra's voice gentled. Maybe it's time someone did. He stood abruptly, the chair scraping stone. You don't understand what I am. I understand more than you think, she said quietly. You hide behind anger because it's safer than pain. His hand clenched at his side. For a heartbeat, she thought he'd walk away. Instead, he took a slow step toward her. Then another. The air thickened. Be careful, Lyra, he murmured. You don't know the darkness you're reaching for. Then show me, she whispered. His breath hitched. But he turned away again, facing the window. Not tonight. She smiled faintly, though her heart ached. Then tomorrow. They rode out at dawn under a sky streaked with pale silver. Behind them, the council fortress faded into shadow. Ahead lay the ruins of Solmere, an ancient temple once dedicated to the moon goddess herself. The council will send hunters, Raven said. They won't risk open war, but they'll try to end this quietly. Then we make it loud, Lyra replied. He glanced at her, and a ghost of a smile touched his lips. You're learning. Ira met them at the crossroads before the temple, her cloak flaring in the wind. You've woken power older than kings. The world trembles already. Then let it tremble, Lyra said. It's been silent too long. They entered the temple grounds. Moonlight poured through the shattered roof, striking the altar at its heart. Runes along the walls glowed faintly, reacting to Lyra's presence. Ira set down a small mirror of polished silver. This is the moon's trial, she said. The mirror will reveal what still binds your power, truths you hide even from yourself. If you face them, you'll master your wolf completely. Lyra stepped forward. And if I fail? Raven answered. Then the moonfire consumes you. The air thickened as she placed her hands on the mirror. Cold rushed up her arms, dragging her into darkness. She stood in a world of light and shadow, neither dream nor waking. The air shimmered like glass. Ahead of her waited figures. Familiar yet wrong. Cassius sneered from the shadows. You think you're special because he looks at you? Her father's voice followed, sharp and cruel. You were a mistake, Lyra. Born to shame me. Then the image shifted and Raven stood before her, not as he was but darker, his eyes hollow. "You'll destroy everything I built." Lyra staggered back. "No. You're not real. We are your fear," the echoes whispered. "The part you never faced." Her wolf's voice rose from within, fierce and clear. "Face them." Lyra drew a deep breath. "You don't own me." The illusions advanced. She raised her hands and light erupted, pure, blinding. The voices screamed and dissolved. When the light faded, she was alone again, standing in the ruins. Her wolf's reflection shimmered before her. Tall, radiant, beautiful. "You are whole," it said. "No longer bound." Lyra reached out, touching the reflection. "Thank you. Now go. The world waits for its reckoning." She opened her eyes to the temple. The mirror lay shattered at her feet, its surface smoking. Raven knelt beside her, worry etched across his face. "What did you see?" he asked. "Myself," she said softly. "And what I had to stop believing." Lyra nodded. "Then the trial is complete." Raven offered his hand. "You did what even gods feared to attempt." Lyra took it and rose. "Now what?" He looked to the horizon, where thunder gathered again. "Now the world learns what a moonfire queen truly is." That night, they camped near the temple ruins. Fires crackled, casting gold light across stone and shadow. Soldiers whispered of omens and destiny. Lyra sat alone at the edge of camp, watching the stars. Raven joined her quietly. "You faced the mirror." "I faced myself," she corrected. "There's a difference." "And what did you find?" "Someone who's done running." He studied her in silence, then nodded. "Good. Because soon, there'll be nowhere left to run." A wind swept through the valley, carrying the faint sound of howls. Too many to count. Lyra tensed. "Wolves." Raven stood, eyes narrowing. "Not ours." From the darkness beyond the ridge, hundreds of eyes glowed, amber, red, and void black. Ira's voice rose from behind them. The council's hunters came faster than expected. Raven's wolf surged beneath his skin. "Then they'll regret it." Lyra's power flared instinctively, silver light spilling from her hands. The sky trembled, the moon breaking through the clouds. For a heartbeat, shadow and light touched again, two forces ready to collide with the world watching. And as the first enemy howl broke the silence, Lyra whispered to the storm, "Let them come." The forest below the ridge writhed with movement. Eyes glimmered in the dark. Hundreds of them, too many to count. The hunters had come. Raven's soldiers fanned into defensive lines while thunder rolled over the mountains. Lyra stood beside him at the cliff's edge, her cloak snapping in the wind. Moonlight spilled over her hair like liquid silver. "They've brought half the northern packs," Raven said quietly. "They mean to finish this before dawn." Lyra's fingers tightened on the hilt of her dagger. "Then dawn will rise over their defeat." Ira moved among the soldiers, drawing runes in ash and salt. "Keep them from crossing the wards," she warned. "If they breach the circle, even the moon won't help us." The first arrow streaked out of the darkness. Raven caught it mid-flight and snapped the shaft in two. "Archers, loose," he barked. Flames ignited across the ridge as fire-tipped arrows met shadow. The smell of smoke and silver filled the air. The hunters came in waves, wolves running on two legs and four, blades flashing. Lyra raised her hands. Power rushed from her like a tide. Silver light poured down the slope, crashing into the oncoming wolves. Those caught in it froze, their eyes turning glassy white. Raven moved like a storm beside her, his sword trailing darkness. Where Lyra's light blinded, his shadow devoured. Together they formed a rhythm, light, dark, strike, shield, the battlefield becoming a whirl of moonfire and night. For a time it seemed enough. But the hunters kept coming. "They won't stop," Ira shouted over the roar of battle. "Something drives them." A sound rose from the valley, a deep, thrumming growl that shook the earth. From the smoke emerged a figure larger than any wolf Lyra had ever seen. Its fur shimmered black-violet, its eyes twin abysses. Raven cursed under his breath. The void-born alpha. Lyra felt the air around her twist. The creature's presence was wrong. Cold, hollow, hungry. Every breath tasted like dust. The beast spoke without moving its mouth. Moonfire child. You burn my name from history. I have come to collect the debt. Lyra staggered back. What are you? What remains when the goddess turns her face away? The voice hissed. Raven stepped in front of her, blade ready. You'll find nothing to feed on here. The void-born laughed, a sound like cracking stone. Then I'll feast on your soul instead. Lunged. Raven met it mid-leap, their clash sending shockwaves through the ridge. Sparks and shadow exploded outward. Lyra's wolf howled inside her, demanding release. Go! Raven shouted. Help Ira with the wards. I'm not leaving you. Do it. Lyra turned and sprinted toward the collapsing line. The wards flickered as hunters forced their way through. Ira's chant wavered. She was bleeding from a cut across her arm. Grandmother! Lyra dropped beside her, pressing both hands to the runes. Tell me what to do. Bind light to earth, Ira gasped. Anchor it before the darkness eats us alive. Lyra closed her eyes and reached deep into the ground. She felt the stone's slow heartbeat, the pulse of ancient magic beneath. Silver fire flowed from her palms into the soil. The runes blazed bright, sealing the circle once more. The sudden surge blasted back the nearest hunters. The wards flared into a dome of light, shielding the camp. Raven crashed to the ground beside her, bruised but standing. His blade dripped with shadow that evaporated into smoke. The Voidborn's wounded but not dead, he said. It retreats to heal. Lyra wiped blood from her cheek. Then it will return stronger. Ira's voice trembled. And so must you. Outside the glowing barrier, the surviving hunters melted into the trees. The night fell silent except for the hiss of rain on cooling earth. Raven surveyed the field of charred soil and fallen bodies. We hold but barely. Lyra stepped beside him, her power still humming. We can't keep defending. We have to end it. He looked at her, something fierce sparking in his eyes. You mean to hunt the Voidborn? I mean to finish what my mother started. 2 days later, the wounded fortress stirred again. Messages had flown faster than ravens. Across the realm whispers spread. The Moonfire Queen lived. One by one they came, wolves who had hidden their strange gifts for generations. The air around the mountain thickened with the scent of awakening magic. Lyra stood on the balcony overlooking the courtyard. Below her, men and women gathered, eyes glowing faintly with silver, gold, or amethyst light. The hidden Moonborn. Dozens of them. Ira joined her, smiling faintly. You see, the bloodline was never lost. Only sleeping. Lyra's chest tightened. So many. Enough to change everything if you lead them. I don't know how. You'll learn. Ira's voice softened. Your mother would be proud. Raven approached, his armor newly repaired. His expression unreadable. They've come to follow you, he said. But they'll need more than faith. They'll need purpose. Lyra looked down at the crowd. Then we give them one. By dusk, torches ringed the courtyard. The Moonborn stood in a wide circle while Raven and Ira flanked Lyra at the center. The air thrummed with expectation. Lyra raised her voice so it carried across the stone. You've lived in shadows long enough. They called us curses, abominations, omens of ruin. But we are not the end of the packs. We are their beginning. A murmur ran through the crowd. She went on louder now. The councils built their thrones on fear. They said power belonged to a few. But power was never meant to be chained. It was meant to be shared. Raven watched her, silent pride flickering in his eyes. Lyra extended her hand. Stand with me. We'll forge a new council, one that binds strength to mercy, shadow to light. The age of hierarchy ends tonight. For a heartbeat there was silence. Then a young wolf stepped forward, a girl no older than 15, eyes bright gold. She dropped to one knee. "I stand with the Moonfire Queen." Another followed. Then another. Soon the entire courtyard knelt, their combined aura lighting the night like dawn. Lyra swallowed hard, overwhelmed. "Rise," she whispered. "We rise together." The ground itself seemed to answer, a deep hum echoing through the stone. Above them the clouds split, revealing the full moon. Its light washed over the assembly, binding them in a shared glow. Ira's voice trembled with awe. "The moon herself bears witness." Raven stepped beside Lyra. "You've just declared war and peace in the same breath. I hope the world's ready. Then we'll make it ready." Later, as the crowd dispersed, Lyra and Raven stood alone in the empty courtyard. The moon hung low, huge and luminous. "You did well," he said quietly. "Did I?" She smiled faintly. "I felt like I was standing on the edge of a cliff, hoping the ground would remember me." It remembered. He glanced up at the sky. "The Moonborn are bound to you now. But with power comes attention. The Voidborn will sense this gathering. So will the Council." "Let them," Lyra said. "We're not hiding anymore." Raven studied her face, something unreadable moving behind his calm. "You speak like a ruler." "I speak like someone who's tired of kneeling." He laughed softly. "Then perhaps the world finally has the queen it deserves." She met his gaze. "And the king it needs." His smile faded, replaced by quiet gravity. "Perhaps. But even kings fall, Lyra. Promise me if I do, you'll keep fighting." Her throat tightened. "Don't talk like that. Promise." "I promise," she whispered. Hours later, when the fortress slept, Lyra walked alone through the moonlit halls. Power still crackled in the air, restless, searching. She reached the balcony again, staring at the stars. A faint presence brushed her thoughts, her wolf's voice, gentle now. "You did well, my light. Is it enough?" She asked silently. "It's the beginning." But darkness always answers the rise of light. Below the mountains, far to the east, a new glow shimmered on the horizon, not gold but black like ink spilled across the sky. Thunder rolled again, deeper, older. Lyra's pulse quickened. "The Voidborn." She turned toward the stairwell where Raven's guards kept watch. "Sound the alarm," she ordered. "The storm's not over." The bell rang moments later, its toll echoing across the valley. Soldiers poured into formation. The Moonborn rallied with silver fire in their hands. Raven appeared at her side, sword drawn. "They move sooner than expected." "They're afraid," she said. "Good." Lightning flashed, illuminating the dark horizon. Shapes moved within the storm. Hundreds, maybe thousands. Raven glanced at her, voice low. "Ready, Moonfire Queen." Lyra felt her wolf surge beneath her skin, fierce and bright. "Always." The wind carried the first growl of the approaching army, a sound that seemed to shake the heavens themselves. Lyra lifted her hand, silver light blooming across her palm. "Then let the night learn what it means to stand against the moon." The storm answered with thunder. And together, side by side, light and shadow, they stepped into the coming war. Dawn came crimson. The mountain air was sharp with the scent of iron and smoke. Beyond the fortress walls, the enemy gathered, a sea of wolves dark as storm clouds. Lyra stood on the ramparts, her armor light but gleaming, a crescent moon engraved on the chest plate. The world below felt hushed, waiting for her signal. Raven joined her, his black armor streaked with silver. The sight of him, calm and unflinching, steadied her heartbeat. "The Voidborn grows stronger," he said. "It feeds on every soul that falls. Then we can't let any fall." He turned his gaze toward her, eyes bright under the blood-red sunrise. "You can't protect everyone, Lyra." She met his look without flinching. "Watch me." He almost smiled, the briefest flicker. "I thought as much." Below, Ira directed the Moonborn, marking runes in the soil with powdered moonstone. When the signal comes, she called, release your light together. The old world will end tonight. Raven's soldiers lined the battlements, silent as statues. Fear hung in the air, but so did hope. Lyra closed her eyes. The pulse of her wolf thrummed beneath her skin. She could feel the moonborn, dozens of them, connected to her by threads of light. They waited for her command. Ready? Raven asked. Lyra nodded once. Let's finish this. He held out his hand, gloved in black leather. Before we begin, there's something I must do. She hesitated, searching his face. What? The bond, he said quietly. You carry half of it already, the mark that awakened your power. But it's incomplete. Lyra's breath caught. If we complete it, our lives will be tied, he said. Our power, our pain, our fates. If one falls, so does the other. She looked down at his hand. And if we don't, then we fight as separate halves against something whole. We'll lose. The wind whipped around them. For a long heartbeat, Lyra said nothing. Then she reached out, pressing her palm to his. Then bind us. Light flared where their hands met, silver and shadow swirling together, merging. The glow rose up their arms, etching marks across their skin like molten runes. Raven's voice was low, almost reverent. By blood, by moon, by shadow, I claim you, Lyra Vale, as my equal. Lyra's voice followed, strong and sure. And I, Lyra of Moonfire, claim you, Raven Thorn, as mine. Not to obey, but to stand beside. The light burst outward in a shockwave that rippled across the fortress. Every wolf dropped to one knee as power crackled through the air. When it faded, the marks on their arms pulsed faintly in time with their hearts. Raven looked at her. His usual reserve stripped away. It's done. Lyra smiled faintly. Now we win. The first wave struck at sunset. The Voidborn's army howled as they poured across the plain, wolves twisted by darkness, their eyes black pits. Lyra raised her hand, and the Moonborn answered. Silver light erupted from the fortress walls, washing across the field. The enemy shrieked as the light burned through their ranks. Raven's soldiers charged through the glare, blades flashing. The battle was chaos, steel and flame, light and shadow colliding in endless motion. Lyra fought in the thick of it, her wolf half shifted, claws trailing moonlight. Every movement felt effortless, guided by something beyond instinct. The bond pulsed through her, Raven's heartbeat beside hers, steady and fierce. When she faltered, his strength steadied her. When he staggered, her light shielded him. Together they moved like twin halves of a single force. Above the battlefield, the moon broke through the storm clouds, full and blinding. The light struck the Voidborn itself where it towered at the edge of the ridge. The creature howled, its body a mass of swirling shadow and bone. Lyra pointed her blade toward it. That's where this ends. Raven nodded once. Together. They ran. The ground shook beneath their feet as they closed the distance. The Voidborn reared, claws tearing furrows in the earth. Foolish children, it hissed. You carry her light and his dark, the same forces that created me. Lyra's voice rang out over the storm. Then it's fitting you die by both. She leapt, silver flames igniting along her blade. Raven followed, his sword a streak of black fire. Their strikes met the creature's chest in unison, light and shadow exploding outward. The blast flung them both back. Lyra rolled to her feet, gasping. The Voidborn staggered, smoke rising from the wound. But it wasn't enough. It laughed low and hollow. You cannot kill what was born from your goddess's own sorrow. Raven's jaw clenched. Then we'll burn her sorrow too. He reached for Lyra's hand, and together they called on the bond. Power surged, twin energies spiraling around them, brighter and darker than anything they'd wielded before. The light bent, the shadows screamed. The Voidborn roared and lunged, and Lyra's world went white. When the glare faded, she was on her knees. The battlefield was silent. Smoke curled from the crater where the Voidborn had stood. Raven knelt beside her, breathing hard but alive. "It's over," he said. Lyra stared at the empty space where their enemy had been. "No," she whispered. "It's not. I can still feel it." And she could faint deep beneath the earth. The Voidborn wasn't destroyed. It had retreated, waiting. Ira limped toward them, her robes streaked with ash. "You've broken its body, not its soul. It will rise again, unless we finish the binding." Lyra looked up. "Binding? The final rite," Ira said. "The one your mother never completed. It seals the darkness away, but it demands a sacrifice." Raven stiffened. "What kind of sacrifice?" Ira met his eyes, sorrowful. "One of the bonded must give their life to anchor the seal." Silence fell. Lyra's blood turned to ice. "No," she said immediately. "There has to be another way." "There isn't," Ira said softly. "The magic needs a living bond. Feeds on the connection between shadow and light. If it fades, the seal breaks." Raven rose slowly, his expression unreadable. "Then it will be me." Lyra stood. "No." He met her gaze. "I've lived my war. You're the future. I won't let you decide that for me. You don't have a choice." She stepped closer, her voice shaking. "Neither do you. We started this together, Raven. We finish it together." His jaw tightened. "Lyra." But she was already turning to Ira. "Tell me what I need to do." Ira hesitated, then nodded. "At the next full moon, the seal can be cast in the ruins of Solmere. Until then, prepare. The choice must be made freely, by both." Lyra nodded, her heart heavy. "Then we'll make it." 3 nights later, the moon rose blood-red over Solmere. The ruins glowed faintly with runes of silver, carved long ago by Moonfire queens. The air trembled with magic. Lyra stood at the center of the temple, surrounded by the gathered Moonborn. Raven approached across the cracked stones, his cloak billowing behind him. His expression was calm, almost serene. "You've decided," he said. Lyra met his gaze. "I have. We both live, or neither of us does. There's no future without balance." Ira began to chant, her voice echoing through the night. The runes flared brighter, forming a circle of light around them. Raven reached for her hand. "Then whatever happens next, I'll be beside you." Lyra's fingers trembled as she took his. "Always." Light gathered between them, swirling faster and faster until the air itself split open. The Voidborn's voice rose from the shadows below. Furious, desperate. "You think you can chain eternity?" Lyra shouted over the roar. "No. We can only remind it what it means to be whole." The power surged. She and Raven lifted from the ground, suspended in the heart of the circle. Their bond flared, not as two forces but one. The light turned blinding. The darkness screamed. Lyra felt the power trying to tear them apart, demanding its sacrifice. Her wolf howled inside her, refusing to yield. Then she understood. The bond wasn't meant to break. It was meant to balance. To share the cost. "Raven," she cried. "Don't fight it, share it." He heard her through the storm. Their joined hands glowed, the mark between them burning with light. Half the energy flowed into him, half into her. Pain lanced through every nerve, but instead of destruction she felt connection. His heartbeat, his thoughts, his memories. The weight he'd carried for years. Together they poured their power into the seal. The ground cracked, then closed again, light sinking deep into the earth. The Voidborn's scream faded to silence. When the glow finally died, they fell to the stone floor. Raven stirred first, groaning. "Still alive." Lyra laughed weakly, relief breaking through exhaustion. "You sound disappointed." "Just surprised." Ira knelt beside them, her eyes shining with tears. "You did it. The seal holds, and both of you live." Raven helped Lyra sit up. The moon above had turned pure white again, washing the ruins in peace. Lyra exhaled shakily. It's over. Ira smiled faintly. No, child. It's begun. By dawn, word of the victory had spread. Wolves from every corner of the realm arrived to witness what remained of Solmere. The new Moonfire Council was sworn under the rising sun. 12 representatives, half wolf, half moonborn, chosen by both. Lyra stood at their head. No crown, only the silver mark glowing faintly on her skin. Raven stood beside her, quiet as always, but the way he looked at her needed no words. Ira watched from the steps, pride softening her lined face. Balance at last, she murmured. Lyra turned to Raven. Do you think peace can last? For a while, he said. Until the next storm. Then we'll face that one too. He smiled. Together. Always. They stood side by side as the sun broke the horizon, light spilling over the shattered stones of Solmere, over wolves kneeling not in submission but unity. The old world had ended. A new one was being born. And above them, high in the brightening sky, the moon faded softly, content at last. Peace never lasts long in a world built on fear. Weeks after the sealing of the Voidborn, the air around Solmere began to change. The moon hung too still, too silent. Rivers ran slower, as if waiting. The wolves whispered that the world held its breath, that the balance Lyra and Raven had created trembled on a knife's edge. Inside the newly rebuilt fortress, Lyra sat in the council hall, light from the stained glass pooling across her hands. Around her, the 12 new representatives argued. The southern packs refuse to acknowledge your rule, one barked. They want proof the darkness is truly gone, said another. And if it isn't? A third asked, voice low. Lyra raised her head. Then we face it together. But we do not divide again. Raven stood behind her, silent. His presence enough to quiet most voices. But not all. You speak of unity, growled Alpha Tauren. But you sit on a throne none of us elected you to. Lyra met his gaze, calm but cold. I didn't ask for this throne. The moon gave it to me. And you're welcome to try and take it back. The chamber stilled. For a heartbeat, the air between them crackled with tension. Then Tauren lowered his eyes. Ira's voice broke the silence. Prophecy warns that when unity falters, shadow stirs again. You'd be wise to listen instead of bickering like cubs. Her words landed like stones in water. After the meeting dispersed, Lyra leaned back in her chair, rubbing her temples. They'll never see me as one of them. Raven's voice softened. They will when they see what you protect. And if they never do, then we protect them anyway. A faint smile touched her lips. You make it sound simple. It isn't. But it's worth bleeding for. That night, she found herself drawn to the balcony overlooking the temple ruins. The moonlight bathed everything in pale silver. She could feel her wolf restless beneath her skin, uneasy. You feel it too, she whispered. Yes, came the inner voice, older now, steadier. Something shifts. The seal strains. Lyra's heart skipped. It's too soon. The darkness below never sleeps for long. You are its other half now. Before she could ask what that meant, a scream echoed from the courtyard below. Lyra's instincts surged. She vaulted over the railing and landed lightly on the stones. Soldiers rushed toward the southern gate where a group of travelers staggered through. Moonborn refugees, their eyes wide with terror. What happened? Lyra demanded. The eldest among them dropped to his knees. Your Majesty, the southern forest burns. The earth split, and from it came wolves made of smoke. They devoured everything. Raven appeared beside her, his face grim. It's begun again. Ira arrived moments later, clutching a stack of scrolls. The prophecy's last verse, she said breathlessly. I thought it incomplete, but... She unrolled the parchment. When the blood of light and shadow mingles, the seal shall waver. The bound shall return, not as foe, but as mirror. Lyra frowned. Mirror. Ira's voice trembled. The Voidborn is not reborn. It reflects what we've become. The more divided we are, the stronger it grows. Raven's gaze hardened. Then the council's distrust feeds it. Lyra turned toward the distant horizon, where faint smoke rose against the moonlight. Then we starve it. We remind them what unity means. 3 days later they rode south. The air turned thick and hot, heavy with the scent of ash. What had once been forest was now wasteland, trees blackened to bone. The ground still smoked. At the heart of the destruction stood a crater. Within it pulsed a rift of swirling black light. It hummed with low, hungry sound. Lyra dismounted and approached cautiously. The closer she came, the louder the hum grew, vibrating through her chest. Raven grabbed her arm. "Careful. It's calling," she whispered. "Then don't answer." But the pull deepened. The rift shimmered, and suddenly a shape rose from within. Not monstrous but human. A woman cloaked in shadow, eyes bright as the moon. Lyra's breath caught. "Mother!" Lyra froze. "No. That isn't her, it's a shade." The figure smiled. "You've done well, my light. You've become what I could not. But the world you saved is not whole." Lyra's pulse thundered. "What are you?" "A memory," it said gently. "And a warning." The shade extended a hand. "The Voidborn feeds on what you fear most, your own power. If you deny it, the rift widens. If you accept it, you may lose yourself." Raven drew his sword. "Enough riddles. How do we stop it?" "By balance," the shade whispered. "As before. But this time not by sacrifice. By truth." The words struck Lyra deep. "Truth." The shade nodded slowly. "You cannot heal a wound you refuse to see." Before Lyra could speak again, the rift pulsed violently, and the shade vanished, leaving behind only silence. Raven caught her as she swayed. "Lyra!" She blinked, the world spinning. "It showed me something, memories but not mine. A time before all this." Ira's voice was urgent. "Tell us." Lyra steadied herself. "It wasn't just my mother. There were others. 12 Moonfire wolves and 12 of Shadow. They created the balance together. Until one side tried to claim the moon's favor alone. That's how the Voidborn was born." Raven's expression darkened. "History repeating itself. Unless we break the pattern," Lyra said. "And I think I know how." That night, they camped beneath the broken trees. The firelight danced across their faces. Lyra stared into the flames, thinking of the shade's words. Raven sat across from her, sharpening his blade. "What are you planning?" "To end the cycle," she said. "You speak like a goddess." She smiled faintly. "Maybe the goddess needs reminding she's mortal too." He lowered his sword. "You realize what that means. To end the cycle, you must face what created it." "I know. And if it's you." Lyra looked up, meeting his eyes. "Then I'll face myself." He said nothing for a long moment. Then he reached across the fire and took her hand. "Then we face it together." The warmth of his grip anchored her against the vast, uncertain dark. The rift in the forest spread like a wound. By the next full moon, it spanned half a mile, devouring everything it touched. The council gathered once more, this time within the shadow of the rift itself. The air shimmered with heat and magic. Lyra stood before them, silver cloak billowing in the wind. "We created this," she said. "Every argument, every division fed it. Now it's our mirror." Torrance sneered. "You expect us to fight alongside abominations." Lyra stepped closer until their faces were inches apart. "You'll fight for survival, or you won't fight at all." He glared but said nothing. Raven addressed the others. "You saw what she did at Solmere. You know what happens when you doubt her. Choose unity or choose extinction." Ira raised her staff, and light flared across the assembly. "The moon will judge us tonight. It will show each of you what lives in your hearts. Only those free of fear can stand in the circle." The wolves murmured uneasily, but one by one they stepped forward. Light passed over them. Some shuddered and fell back, unable to bear its touch. Others remained, fewer than half. Lyra entered the circle last. The rift roared and the ground shook. From its depths rose the Voidborn again, not as a monster this time, but as a reflection. It looked like her, shadowed and twisted, eyes black with stars. The council cried out, some in awe, some in horror. Lyra faced it calmly. "Oh, this is my fear." The shadow smiled. "No, little moon. I am your truth. The part of you that revels in power, that enjoys being worshipped." "I don't. Don't lie," the shadow purred. "You loved it. The cheers, the kneeling. You think you're different from the ones who ruled before." Lyra's hands shook. "I fight for them." "You fight to prove you're better," the shadow said. "That's pride, not mercy." Raven's voice cut through the wind. "Lyra." She turned, eyes wide. "I can't fight it. It knows every thought." "Then stop fighting." "What?" "Accept it," he said simply. "The shade told you, truth, not denial. Balance isn't destroying the dark. It's embracing it." The shadow laughed. "He's right. But can you love what you hate most?" Lyra's heart pounded. Slowly, she lowered her weapon. The shadow's smirk faltered. "I see you," Lyra said quietly. "You're everything I was afraid to be. And everything I might become. But you're still me." She stepped forward, hands open. The shadow lunged, but instead of clashing they merged. Silver and black light spiraled skyward. The rift screamed, then collapsed in on itself. When the light faded, Lyra stood alone at the center of a scorched circle, her cloak smoking, her eyes no longer just silver but streaked with deep violet. Raven rushed to her side. "Lyra!" She smiled faintly, exhausted but whole. "It's done. The shadow's mine now." Ira exhaled in relief. "The seal is perfect this time. No halves, only one." The council knelt around them, humbled. Torin bowed his head. "Moonfire Queen," he said hoarsely. "Forgive us." Lyra shook her head. "There's nothing to forgive. Just remember." Raven helped her stand, his hand steady beneath hers. "What happens now?" Lyra looked at the horizon, where the first light of dawn touched the ruined forest. "Now we rebuild again. But this time we do it right." The others nodded, silent. The wind carried the scent of ash and rain, the smell of endings and beginnings. Ira leaned on her staff. "You've done what no one before you could, Lyra. You've made peace with your shadow. That's how light survives." Lyra looked to the sky. The moon hung pale against the morning blue, fading but still visible. She felt its quiet pulse in her blood. "Maybe peace isn't about silence," she said softly. "Maybe it's about learning to listen." Raven smiled faintly. "Then the world finally has a queen who listens." Lyra turned to him. "And a king who never stopped believing." He brushed a lock of hair from her face, his touch gentle. "Then let's see what kind of world we can build together." Above them the clouds broke apart, sunlight spilling through like blessing. The war was over, the prophecy fulfilled. And in that fragile dawn, the moonfire burned anew, not as destruction but as light reborn. The dawn after the rift's collapse was strange and still. The air smelled clean, washed of ash, yet the silence carried weight, as though the world waited for something to begin breathing again. From the cliffs above the ruined valley, Lyra watched mist curl over the blackened soil. The place where the rift had been now shimmered with faint silver light, a scar that pulsed like a heartbeat. Raven stood beside her, one hand resting on the pommel of his sword. "It's beautiful," he said quietly. "It's wounded," Lyra replied. "Beauty and pain share the same bones." He glanced at her, half smiling. "You sound like Ira." She'd take that as a compliment. Behind them, the new council arrived. Ira, Torin, and the other Moonborn who had survived the battle. They gathered in a loose circle, faces lit by the strange glow from below. Ira raised her staff. "The seal holds," she said, "but the world must heal with it. The balance you forged isn't permanent unless something living anchors it." Lyra frowned. You mean another sacrifice? Not death, Ira said, shaking her head. Life. The earth needs a guardian to keep the link between light and shadow awake. It must be willing, and it must be whole. Raven looked at Lyra. She means you. Lyra stared at the valley. If I take that role, I won't be me anymore. You'd be more, Ira said softly. The world's heartbeat. The first goddess reborn. Silence fell. Lyra could hear the wind whisper through the burnt trees, could feel the faint hum of power waiting beneath the ground. It called to her, gentle but insistent. She turned to Raven. If I become this, will I still be able to walk beside you? He hesitated. Maybe not in flesh. But the moon and the night have always belonged together. Her throat tightened. That's not an answer. He took her hands. It's the only one I have. The warmth of his grip steadied her. She drew a slow breath and faced the valley again. Then let's begin before doubt finds me. Ira nodded and began tracing a circle of symbols around the glowing scar. Moonborn warriors stepped back, lowering their heads. Lyra walked to the center. Light rose around her feet, threading up her body in shimmering patterns. The ground vibrated, answering her heartbeat. Raven's voice broke through the hum. Lyra, wait. She looked over her shoulder. I need to say it, he said. Before you become something the world will pray to instead of touch. Her lips curved in a sad smile. Say it, then. I love you, he said simply. Not because you're moonfire or prophecy. Because when I was drowning in shadow, you looked at me and saw the man, not the monster. Lyra's eyes burned. And you saw the woman in me when I thought there was only ruin. The light around her brightened, wrapping her in silver flame. Hold on to that, Raven. It's what will keep us both human. Then she closed her eyes and let go. Light exploded outward, flooding the valley, the mountains, the very air. It wasn't blinding, it was alive. The earth drank it in, and grass began to grow where ash had been. Rivers glittered again. Flowers burst through cracks in stone. The moonborn fell to their knees as the glow reached them. Raven shielded his eyes. His breath caught between awe and grief. In the heart of the brilliance, Lyra's form dissolved, body turning to light, then to countless motes rising toward the sky. When the radiance finally dimmed, a single figure stood where she had been, a spectral woman of light and mist, her eyes the color of dawn. The air thrummed with her presence. Lyra, Raven whispered. Her voice came soft and everywhere at once. I'm still here. He stepped forward, hand outstretched. His fingers passed through light but felt warmth. What happens now? You live, she said. You lead them into the world we dreamed. I'll watch from the moon's edge. He shook his head. You are the moon now. Her smile was both sorrow and peace. Then I'll never be far from your night. A wind swept through the valley, lifting her luminous form higher. For an instant she shone brighter than the sun. Then she was gone, leaving behind a silver feather that drifted into Raven's hands. He closed his fingers around it, whispered something no one heard, and turned to the waiting crowd. The Moonfire Queen isn't dead, he said. She's everywhere. In the days that followed, the world began to change. The rivers cleared, the forests bloomed again, and wolves born beneath the new moon carried faint glows in their eyes, signs of Lyra's blessing. Raven ruled not as conqueror but as keeper. The council swore loyalty to balance, not to blood. And every night, when the moon rose high, its surface shimmered with the faint outline of a woman's face watching over them. Sometimes, in the quiet before dawn, Raven would stand on the same cliff where they'd said goodbye. He would hold the feather to the light, and the wind would whisper his name as though she still answered. Years passed. The realm healed slowly, like a wound learning to trust its own skin again. Children who had never known the wars grew up beneath twin banners, the crescent of moonfire and the black star of nightfall, symbols of unity. The stories of Lyra and Raven became legend told around firelight, the queen of light, the king of shadow, and the love that rebuilt the world. But Raven never sought legend. He spent his days walking among villages, teaching them the old balance. At night he returned to Solmere, now a sanctuary rather than fortress. Ira remained the temple's keeper until her hair turned completely white. She liked to say the moon had stolen her color out of affection. One evening, as the first frost of winter touched the fields, she found Raven standing in the courtyard staring up at the moon. "She shines brighter tonight," Ira said. "She's restless," he murmured. "The world changes faster than even she can see. Change is what she gave her life for." He nodded slowly. "Sometimes I wonder if she misses the noise of living." Ira chuckled. "Then talk louder." "She's listening." That night Raven dreamed of silver plains and endless stars. In the dream, Lyra walked toward him, barefoot, her hair drifting like smoke. "You never rest," she said. "I can't," he answered. "They still need me." She touched his chest. "They need you to live, not just lead. Hard to do without you." Her smile was soft. "You've had me every night you've looked up." He reached for her, but the dream dissolved. When he woke, the feather on his bedside glowed faintly, pulsing with light. Outside, bells rang, the signal for the solstice gathering. The Moonborn and the Pack tribes met every winter now, renewing the vows of unity Lyra had forged. Raven dressed and stepped onto the balcony overlooking the courtyard. Thousands filled the open space below, torches blazing like stars. At the front stood the young leaders of each tribe, descendants of those who had once fought one another. Raven raised his hand, and silence rippled outward. "Tonight marks 10 years since the world ended and began again," he said. "The moonfire still burns in every heart that chooses light over fear. Remember her not as a goddess distant from us, but as the part of ourselves that refuses to bow." The crowd murmured assent, then quieted again as the moon rose. For a moment clouds veiled it. Then the sky cleared and light spilled down, not cold but warm. Silver dust drifted through the air, settling on faces, armor and fur alike. Gasps filled the courtyard. Ira smiled. "She blesses you." Raven looked up, tears bright in his eyes. The moon's glow seemed to pulse once, like a heartbeat answering his own. He whispered, "Thank you, Lyra." After the ceremony, he wandered beyond the walls to the meadow where the first moonfire had touched the earth. Grass waved silver in the moonlight. He knelt, tracing a circle in the soil with his gloved hand. "You kept your promise," he said to the night. "Now it's my turn to keep mine." He drew the feather from his cloak. It still shimmered faintly, untouched by time. He planted it in the ground. As it touched the soil, light spread outward in thin veins, weaving through the grass like living threads. From those threads sprouted tiny flowers that glowed softly. Ira appeared behind him. "What are you doing, old wolf?" "Giving her roots again," he said. "So she'll always be part of the earth she saved." Ira nodded. "Then the world will bloom with her every spring." Spring came early that year. The flowers multiplied, blanketing the valley in silver light. Travelers called it the field of the Moonfire Queen. Those who walked among the blossoms claimed to feel warmth, comfort, courage, whatever their hearts most lacked. Raven visited often. He aged slower than most, touched perhaps by the bond they had shared. When the day finally came that his breath faltered, he went to the field alone. The moon hung low, bright as the day he'd first seen her awaken. He lay among the glowing flowers and looked up. "Still watching," he murmured. A breeze stirred, brushing his hair like a familiar hand. "Good," he whispered, smiling. "Because I'm coming home." His eyes closed, and the wind carried the scent of moonflowers higher, scattering petals across the sky. For an instant, two lights flared on the moon, one silver, one dark, and then merged into one. Years later, children would point to that shimmer in the moon's face and ask what it was. Their elders would smile and tell them the tale of the queen who became light, the king who became shadow, and the world they built from the ashes of fear. And when the wind passed through the fields of moonflowers, whispering soft as a heartbeat. Those who listened closely swore they could still hear two voices, one low, one bright, laughing together beneath the eternal sky. The moon has set, but the story doesn't end here. If this journey through light and shadow stirred something in you, hit that like button, share it with someone who loves powerful storytelling, and subscribe so you don't miss the next chapter that burns just as bright. Drop a crescent moon in the comments if you stand with the Moonfire Queen. Until the next moonrise, stay fierce, stay unbound.